All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another magnificent Terran Tuesday. Thanks each and every single one of you for showing up here. Talking to you, Moral Officer Grant. That you're having a magnificent day today.
Officer.
It's another good Tuesday on our hands, folks, and I'm a little out of it today. I was doing a lot of writing early on. But Black Knight, you up to your usual editing?
Well, not today. Today I was helping my parents. I assembled some shelves because the old shelves were like rusting, and we just wanted to be safe, and assembled the shelves, and we stocked them with stuff, and then I cooked something. And my mom also cooked something, so
what did she cook?
That was, yeah. Well, I made a mushroom sauce with mushrooms, and aru, and also spicy chicken. I baked it in the oven with lots of spices and butter, and also a potato salad with herb butter and onions.
A little of everything, it sounds like.
Yeah.
Not bad at all. Not bad at all. Having a good family meal down there where you get some heavy work done, I imagine, because, furniture and stuff.
I think I'll do some extra writing tomorrow to compensate.
You got to make up for it.
Yeah.
Got to keep those deadlines.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. But R.H Snow, how are you doing since the last time we seen you?
I think my stuff is working better. Is it working better? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Good. There's just been we didn't have any major sunspots or anything today, so yay for my internet connection. I'm very proud.
Nice.
I know, I'm so happy. And I've been busy writing. Actually, writing meaning editing, because I do a rolling edit thing. So like I admire people that actually edit and they actually just sit down and edit. I end up writing when I'm editing because no matter what I do, I end up going in and going, oh, this more could be in there. This little bit could be in there. I take out. So I ended up wholesale lifting. I write in giant chunks. I've already told y'all that before. Write giant chunks of stories that just come to me and I write it. And I had this massive tome. I mean, literally, I was hitting about 180,000 words. And I knew when I handed it off to my first beta reader is always my son. He's the other one. He's also a science fiction writer. And the first thing he said to me is, I was a little intimidated at first when I was trying to read it. And then he realized I have it in 24-point font so I can see it because I have to have the letter big so I can read. So it was like 1,000 pages. But when I hear him go, oh, I might be a little intimidated. This is a dude that took great literature for one of his, honors programs. And so I'm like, dude, if you're intimidated, I got to knock this down. So I actually lifted an entire section that I had written, which is it took me 3 months to write this section. This pure combat from start to finish. It's either getting ready to go into combat, it's close quarters combat. So it's a very specific form of fighting. It has a lot to do with going room to room with small groups. And it's not the typical because it's actually two people together, one who is very familiar with close quarter combat, other one who is not. Specifically, the Watcher and Rose. And Rose, although she is skilled at doing sniping to a certain extent, usually mid-range shooting from a distance, from a safe position, she is not really a close quarters person. And going through that process with her was a 25,000 word section. And I looked at it and went, you know what? This actually is for the next book. And I've already got that book sort of in progress. And this happens to me a lot. It happens to me almost every time. So I've now got 20,000 words for the next book. Great. The problem is that I had to go back and make sure that I didn't accidentally foreshadow this piece or leave a part in there where, it references it accidentally after or anything like that. And if you actually can lift in, it's kind of like killing your darlings. If you can go and reach your hands into a piece of work and lift a scene out, and it really doesn't change the outcome, it's not supposed to be there at that point. It does have a very specific place, and there's a specific quest that goes with this whole sequence. And I was, but because of the convoluted nature of this book, because it's literally Game of Thrones level, I've got so many people in it. There's approximately 20 characters that are either major or minor characters that have speaking roles and parts and things that they have to accomplish in order for me to finish out the series. And so I was like, you know what, dude, I can take this out. So I was really proud of myself that when I took it out, it didn't feel bad. There's times when you take out a piece of your work, and I know you've both been through this. You take it, write a scene, and you love it, and you take it out, and you're like, no, my scene, my beautiful scene. I actually felt good because I looked at it and it was like, oh my gosh, this actually works. It works better without it. It flows better. I don't have to worry about this giant combat scene being right there right now and having the emotional fallout that's going to go with it. So I'm able to shift it and give it the attention it needs, and it fits so perfectly in with the next book that I was excited. So this is the first time I've really done a chop that big that was that scary to me, and having done it, I feel so great this week that it's just doing that rolling edit of finally finishing out. It's been finished. I've already got it written. I don't know how to say it. Do you ever do that thing where you write the last few words and you go, I'm done. It's done. I'm finished. That hasn't quite happened to me yet, even on this. And I'm raising my money so I can get it done. And so, because I'm sending it into Stephen Black for the edit. And so I'm raising the money for that. And while I'm doing that, I'm like, I've still got this little piece. And so I'm waiting for that piece to fall in place. And one of the pieces that had to fall in place was actually me taking out that giant, very emotional, physically horrendous scene of this close quarters combat section. So I'm really happy with this last couple of weeks. But like you said, I was so deep in the weeds with writing that it's just literally sucked the life out of everything else I'm doing. Happy you? Where everything
That's I probably mentioned that when I was working on the 5th and the 6th books of my of the Star Shatter series. I had, especially on some on the 6th, on the 5th, but mostly on the 6th, I had I had to chop huge sections because it is already a big book, and it's mostly one long war for the liberation of a planet, and it's a lot of action in space and on the ground. And when you had also to consider the fact that it is character development and plot heavy, because you have additional characters, minor characters which appear, and you also have the perspective of the baddies, quote unquote. And yeah, it got quite thick. Even the drafts, like I think the 7th draft, even it was like I had left a whole bunch of notes. So it's like this could be cut out, this would cut out, this and this and that and that and that. It's like there were a few in each chapter. So yeah, I had to do it. Of course, since this is a space opera, you have to have specific elaborative descriptive moments, and if you cut too many, then the structure and the flow of the book will suffer. So I left them in. I left some of it in. I cut some of it out, but the cutting was was heavy. Yeah.
Oh,
And I have to mention something. Do any of you have issues with posting messages in the chat in YouTube?
No, not usually. No.
tried in a couple of weeks. Do you need me to go up and take a whack at it?
Tried. Mora Officer Grant had issues. I had issues too. I couldn't tag people. It gave me an error. So
I wouldn't
I
be. That's been going around a lot lately with some people having social media, especially with what's happening in England right now with Great Britain. There's been a lot of interruptions that are sort of off the books because it relates to the online ID, other things, and I think there's just glitches enacting that right now, and I think that's going to probably get a little bit bigger as, especially if you're using VPN or anything else, it may actually affect the way you're doing it.
Well, yeah, who knows? It could be a number of things, but I wanted to pull up a comment here talking about writing, as we often do, from King Bob. Says writing sucks. I don't know how y'all do it. He a little while ago he came up with an interesting story he pitched me, and I told him he should he should go ahead and write it because it seemed like he had it really thought through and had his heart set on it. So I'm wondering if that has something to possibly do with it. Him, trying to give his hand at the old writing shtick.
No, Bob, you need to do it. You need to do it right now. I love you. You're next one up, bro. You're my child. Go get it. Come on.
Yes. Join us in our wholesome doom. Yeah, write about space hamsters and stuff. You know you want to.
Yeah, you know you want to.
Now, what are some daunting aspects of writing that you guys may have ran into early on in your journeys?
You go.
Ah,
Got big stories.
I mean, I think I already talked about it. That's
too bad. You have to talk about it again.
Yeah. I pretty much I was mostly alone. I didn't have any native speaker assistance. I had to learn a lot on my own, just without anyone to ask about stuff. So that was like the most massive issue. Of course, translating all of the drafts that they had from Bulgarian to English, that was quite hard. I made some mistakes there. I had to also translate my draft notes, and then you had the problem with time, which back then I had 3 jobs, and I was literally fighting against time in most cases to preserve my most of my most important notes and draft bits, because it was mostly on paper. Some of it was digital, and I had to save it on flash drives and then copy it, and then the flash drives got screwed up, and I had to somehow store that. So yeah, that was like it was crazy.
Yeah, definitely part of the journey. Indeed, we have Bob replying here. It will never be written because I know science too well, and keep realizing it just won't work. Well, you know what? We haven't got.
You have to believe. You have to believe. It's like science is all about belief. That if it's your truth, if you believe in your truth, then it will work.
See, this is what you got to do. You just got to set it in the future where whatever's wrong has been fixed.
Yeah, with
through,
crystals.
Yeah, through enter solution here.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Now, how do you think Jules Verne got to the center of the earth?
That's right.
Yes.
Exactly.
So or you can just invent a MacGuffin for everything, no problem.
Yeah.
MacGuffinize everything. That's it.
You can do a lot. Set it in the future. Set it somewhere else. Time machines don't exist. We got them time machines.
Or set it during mystical Atlantis with like the floating energy powered by energy crystals, floating ships with powered by energy crystals and shit.
Yeah.
And you just have to invent an energy crystal for everything. No problem there.
Yeah, you basically you come up with your own systems of, and I was lucky because mine's going backwards basically. So I have a near future backward. I say near future within a couple of centuries. I won't say exactly how long. I know when it is. I actually know the year it happened, so I'm happy with that. But so it's near enough future that language is kind of the same. Some of the cultural things are still the same. It would be considered classic culture at that point. And I have the ability to go backwards from where I am. So I have to envision a future for us that falls backwards from where we are now. And so there's pieces and parts of it that are in place, but then there's other things. So I kind of have an idea of how a lot of this is supposed to work. I also run the risk of it because they're going backwards. I don't have as much of a problem with this, but the risk that things move forward so fast that it's no longer science fiction, that it's science fact. And I've often said that The Watch of the Dam ended up being a documentary at this point, nearly, which is driving me nuts. So everything in the Epstein files, I'm like, I can't read this today. I'm going to have to stop writing my book. It's too crazy. And I think when you're talking about far future or mid-range futures where people are saying, well, we already have these things, the science part of science fiction does get pretty tricky. So how do we do it? We bring in that mystery. And the best way that you can do this, and Bob, I already know you've been reading these things. Read Isaac Asimov and Ray Bradbury. See how they did it, even in the mid-century. Their work still feels fresh. It still feels like it's not happened yet. Even though we're so far beyond that. That's now a half century, 75 years in the past, sometimes longer. And we still haven't quite gotten to that place yet. The same thing with Jules Verne. Even though it's steampunk, it's still, there's some things that we just haven't done yet. Like the vast, undersea ships that take people around. How did they do it? They did it because they took what was real for them at that point and they created that future. And so don't be afraid of that science part of it. You've got a dream in your head. You know what it is you're seeing. Just first start just writing it and then say, well, how would that happen? Where's the hole? And then you fill it up with your MacGuffin, basically, or whatever you want to call it. You find a piece of technology that has not yet been created. But I will guarantee you that one of the greatest gifts of science fiction is the fact that imagined a future that was not yet possible. The things that we have seen that have taken place either in Jules Verne or in Ray Bradbury's works or in Star Trek, certainly, is a huge one because we now have that technology. Because it inspired somebody else to try to figure out how would they do it.
Yeah, that's true.
Ability to say, okay, they actually looked at how they wanted to do this. They looked at how they might create this situation, and where somebody else just put a placeholder in it, basically, and says, I don't know yet how this is going to work. Here's where I don't yet have this piece of solution. Somebody else who's 20 years down the line from you comes in and goes, wait, we've discovered we can do X. I can put it in that placeholder. You're not just giving the world your vision, you're giving the world their future. When you create futures that are worthy of happening, you actually are giving the world a gift. And so we don't ever want to not write just because it might not be possible. Learn how to use those placeholders to the best effect. And the best way to do it, actually, I think for most people, is just simply write the story at first. And then ask yourself, where's the hole? Where does the plot hole occur? Where's that science hole? And put a plausible placeholder for someone else to be able to pick up that thing and say, I want to use this. you will be giving the world a gift, because you don't know, but you may be the next person who inspires a generation of scientists.
The gift of uplifted hamsters.
Uplifted hamsters, yes, and bunnies that plant watermelons.
Yeah, well,
That's funny. Okay, he says, I'm already doing a bit too much hand waving for my taste, but realistically, the outline is 90% done. Science is set, ship is designed, so I'm actually being a bit dramatic.
yeah, he is. Yeah. I don't know. I'm not going to speak about the science fiction in Star Shuttle too much. I think I've spoken enough, and I definitely will never open my mouth about the inspiration behind said science fiction science, because I'm forbidden from doing so. But I could, and let's get to the topic of today's Terran Tuesdays episode, which is us being inspired by civilizations, ancient or otherwise. So it's these could be ancients, the ancients. It could be not the not so ancient. In my case, it was not just some certain aspects of the Roman Empire, but also the British Empire, and especially specifically some aspects of its military organization, which I adopted for the Tazaran Imperium. I probably, you remember this bit from the first book.
Oh yeah.
Where Billy was running away from this unit of Tazaran soldiers.
Yes.
They, for the most part, just like, well, not 100% like, but quite similar, because it was like a real system, a real conscription system, and real officer corps that existed. You could purchase your commission. So imagine that you're the third son of some affluential Tazaran noble, and you have some money, or you probably participated in some scheme, you invested some money, you got like a sizable chunk of platinum minted decades, and you decide, okay, so the first son is going to inherit if we don't kill him. The second son is going to inherit the first son if we don't kill him.
Yeah.
What the fuck am I doing here? I should go in the military and like go away before the fourth son kills me. So you decide, okay, so let's see. Is it the Navy? Well, no, I don't like to fly cross space. No, screw this. Like I'm not I'm not cut out for this. Let's say the Army. Okay, so let's say the infantry, and you go to one of the procurement offices in the British Empire at that time. It was the Horse Guard, and you would use the levers of power and the positions of nobility. You could ask like a favor from one of your mommy's friends or one of your daddy's friends, so they could put you in a better position, and then you will pay for your commission. you will effectively use money to buy already existing military unit. You will buy the command, and you will buy the rank. The problem with this system, the system had its advantages. The first massive advantage was that the cost of maintaining the troops and the equipment and the weapons and almost everything was covered by this system. So they wouldn't have to raise too many taxes to like assemble new units or maintain the already existing units because of this. But the massive issue was that in many cases, many of these men they were incapable. They were quite incapable, and it ended in disaster. However, there is one big however, is that this system had certain checks and balances, and they had a way to dispose of the most incompetent, unless they were like some high nobility, like the highest nobility. They could dispose of them, like during battle. You, my fellow Americans, might remember a certain period called the Vietnam War, and a certain practice called fragging.
Yep.
Yes. So the Tazarans have a word for it. It's called beaming. Certainly they have grenades, but they're a bit different. So the practice of beaming, it involves like one of their beam weapons, their favorite weapons, which 99% of all militaries everywhere use the same technology. It's ubiquitous. So whether you get shot by the enemy with the particle beam weapon, or you get shot by one of your troops in the back or wherever, it's quite difficult to prove who shot you. So this is one of the checks and balances. So the other thing is that they had a great corps of sergeants and other low like lifers in the army who knew everything. They had like 20 years of experience. Many of them, some of them grew up in the army. They had they were like, they got into the army as drummer boys, or like helpers, powder monkeys, whatever, and they knew literally everything about modern warfare at the day. And so one of the things that all of these nobles, these posh rich nobles, did, they would find some grizzled old sergeants, and they would pay them to teach them how the fuck not to die and how to properly lead troops in battle, and they would do it. So that was the second major check and balance in this system. So it does also exist within what I create, because they wouldn't be a competent enemy, a competent foe, villain for the heroes to beat. They have their like at a certain moment in the story, they have their almost like comical villain level antagonists, but it's only in the situation which describes the broad beginning setup of everything, and it is culturally and historically explained within the world building. So
Mhm.
that's it's not just like, oh yeah, they are a bunch of disposable enemies. Well, to their own command and the people who send them there, certain individuals, they are quite disposable, and they are quote unquote promoted and sent there, just like the American military, for example, sends people to
Mhm.
quote unquote count penguins. Have you
Yeah,
heard about that? Yeah.
counting penguins.
And counting penguins, looking at tumbleweeds. I don't know what's the jargon for the troops who are sent like somewhere in the
Mhm.
desert in the U.S., like in Texas or and somewhere else where there is nothing to do, and they're just like sent there uh, to not screw up something big, something which is like they know that they're not capable of operating in a dangerous environment, and the certain high commanders are painfully aware that um, it's better to, like, they cannot just remove them. Uh,
Mhm.
it's best to for them to be sent somewhere, so where they can, even if they fuck up something, they will just like, yeah, okay, yeah, you're just um you're not throwing in it's like massive military operations. You're not causing the deaths of thousands of people, and then the loss of, let's say, a carrier or something, like something massively expensive.
Mhm.
So yeah.
Yeah, yeah. How much different cultures did you have to research before sort of settling on one that you wanted to pull from?
At least three. At least three. I was a bit wary of borrowing too much from Rome because it's a bit overused. Um, I researched. Um, I researched some of the warfare in the early medieval age. Think
Mm.
Norman knights with chainmail and
Yeah.
uh, big wooden shields and swords and axes and stuff, like no plate armor, no super powerful longbows, and like trebuchets and massive fortress. No, no, no. It was uh, let's say the contrast is one of the things that I wanted to be there,
Yeah.
not just from moral building perspective, but uh, so that I could wield it as another tool in the storytelling arsenal.
Mm-hmm. All right. Yeah. I mean, then I always heard that, if you want to write an interesting battle, you sort of just can steal an existing battle, all the
Mhm,
separate
mhm.
tactics. So there's
Yeah.
there's a lot of application
Oh,
of
there is. Yeah.
history. But Snow, I assume you took plenty from Texas history to sort of write your post-apocalyptic future. Why don't you tell us about that?
Well, of course, this is, and I say this really guardedly because I know that a lot of people love their own histories. They're very involved with
Mhm.
local histories, and each one of you on here I know without a doubt, because you're writers and I hear you often talk about the cultural cues that you've taken from where you're from. And I'm so appreciative of that, because I moved all over the country actually as a younger person. My father worked with the military and with the government, working on classified projects, including the Apollo 11 moonshot. And so we were all over the country, even though I was born and raised in Texas. We would move every 18 months or at the very least. And so I was constantly on the road. We were constantly going back and forth between these jobs, and we would come home to Texas between. I was always shocked at how there were some places where people knew very little about their local history, except for maybe they would know like a town, and they would know the founder of the town, or they would know the pioneers. They would have a lot of pioneers. We lived out west a lot. And there would be little pieces that they would know of particular eras. And in Texas, we're actually required, still are, to learn all of Texas history. You take it early, and you're not only expected to take it in school, and I lived in Idaho, we had Idaho history as well, things like that. But the overall scope of Texas history is so ingrained in the state itself. I don't know anybody who doesn't know what the Alamo is. I don't know anybody who doesn't know a little bit about the names and the places that are around and who is actually involved. Even in a modern era where education has sort of moved away from learning about history, it is such a part of the culture that people are so proud of being Texans that they know who they are and they know where they come from. But it wasn't until I really started going back into my family history, and I've got an extensive family tree that I looked at, because I love history. I love people's stories. I like looking at the little minutia of life as a human being in 1830, moving to this place and trying to live. And whether you're on the side of the settlers or you're on the side of Quanah Parker's ancestors who were Native American, there is such a story and such a history out here. Everything seems to be alive with it. And I know for Europe, it seems like a very short timeline. Ours really starts out here in the 1830s, but it's very intimate. There's people who live here still remember Quanah Parker. They still remember talking about him as a child. Well, I still have relatives of his that live just down the road, actually, and the people who were at the massacre at the Fort Parker. And so there is an intimacy with Texas history, I think, that's unique to the culture in particular. And as a result, for me to write about it, it didn't feel like I was reaching back into time. It felt like I was trying to carry it forward and having to deal with it as a person who knows that cultures die, they become subsumed. I wrote the story exactly as it came to me of Texas basically breaking free to become this place where they would have another war, that they would have another for independence, that it would still retain some of its culture, but some of it would be washed away. Some of it would actually be pulled down because there would be people fighting over what part of it was just and what part of it was right and what part of it was a failure, and that there would be a lot of diversion back and forth between these people. But at the same time, there would still be that pride in who we are as Texans. And how does that change? We've seen so much change in the last 5 years in America, where all the statues were pulled down, and basically in a color revolution in the United States, where they pulled down everything, trying to erase as much culture as quickly as possible. Those who were in charge of that weren't really prepared for how much most Americans do know about their history, and most Americans do understand quite a bit about it. And so in Texas, I'm pushing that forward into the future and saying, okay, how much was erased? How much was made woke or varnished over or whitewashed and still retained that flavor of Texas? And I have to transform it in that process and then say, okay, what still remains after everything goes away? What is going to be told? Well, it's the stories that people know the best. And they're going to have, in a near future scenario, you have two things you have to do. You have to harken back to the cultural touchstones that people understand. And then you have to create a future for them. And much like we talked about with any situation in science fiction where we have the placeholders, well, you have to have something for them to talk about. Well, Texas, because Texas history is also Texas culture and Texas cooking, Texas foods and other things, you have the potential for that border to shift slightly south or north especially with Mexico, for borders to be hardened, perhaps between the United States and another culture. And Watcher the Dam, we actually have the conglomeration of Indian nations, which is where Oklahoma becomes its own sort of separate no man's land prior to the apocalypse. And so we have people that are from there. We have the Aztlan culture, whereas basically the borderlands of Texas becoming overlapped with the Mexican Empire, which has becomes fragmented into all of these different cartels. And so I have these other nations that exist, not as the boundaries were when I'm writing it, but as what I imagine it might be in the future. And then we have culture to go with it too. I have songs that I reference that are real songs, and I have to be careful because I can only say the title or one line. I think it's like one line. You can say the title line, not say anything else, and I can refer to it with artists. And I usually try to do that where I have the artist name and the writer, and we'll say the few little words that go with it. And then I've also made up ones. My favorite one that I came up with was Gamma and the Ray Guns, and that's like a band that the Watcher knows from Austin, and it's still there, even though it's not. Maybe they have live music venues, but a lot of it's actually digitized. You're not really there. You think you're there, but you're not. And so we have to sort of embed that little piece of culture in it. And as we go back and we say, okay, what is that person who's lived through that sort of washing of the culture, who's still come out on top of it, and then has this gargantuan fall into destruction? What's left of that culture? What are they going to miss the most? What are they going to wish they had? One of the things that we're seeing right now, for instance, is the have you ever lost your phone and you can't listen to your music at all? You can't even reference it. You can't go and find something to listen to. You can't just turn on the radio, most of it, and listen to music anymore. You have to have your signed in document, your signed in device for you to go and listen to anything or enjoy your books or anything else. Nothing.
I don't understand. I always have like.
It's one of the reasons why I still have physical books, and it's because it will disappear. But music, if you can't play the CD, if you don't even have a way to do it, if you don't have vinyl, how do you even play on it if you have vinyl but you don't have a needle? You would have to sing things. You would have to be able. Can any of you actually sing any Bad Bunny lyrics? Can any of you actually sing an Ice-T? And actually, they reference rap music as classical. Now, there's a whole series where "Damn It Feels Good to Be a Gangsta," is one of the songs that he references. Actually, in the future, one of the characters does. The Watcher references, being young and listening to the majesty of Natural Born Killers the first time, and how it changed his life because it was so profoundly poetic, And so we have these clips and little pieces, but can you actually sing it without the backdrop in the background? Can you actually sing these songs? Well, they go back to the songs they actually could sing, which a lot of them are folk songs. Folk songs are popular for a reason. They're still singable. You don't have to have a background in it. You don't have to have a funky backbeat or a guitar solo that goes in the middle. It's a song. So those songs exist. Hymns from the ancient hymns still exist, even though many people forget them. There's a reason we still sing them in my church. I have a whole collection of hymnals here at my house, some that are over almost 200 years old. And then I have the new ones from our church, which are from the 1980s. And they're contract for me to allow me to sing, because now you can't sing unless you have a contract to sing those songs. But I know the public domain ones. Well, those are the ones that are going to survive. And this great cleansing, as people fall away, what are they going to remember? They're going to remember something that someone sung to them when they were little, and they can hum it to themselves. And there might be some other songs too that they'll hum that they know so well that they can still hear that sound in their head. But one of the biggest moments in the Watcher's coming back, it's sort of a spoiler, but he gains access finally to a ring. The ring is actually the device in the story. The ring is a digital device, which is actually not just digital, it's neurophoretic, meaning that it actually hooks into your neurological system, and actually hooks into all of your nerves. You can feel things, you can touch things that you're seeing just on your ring, and it just clips right in. And so it basically takes over your brain and your body with this AI. And so he actually is able to get a hold of a ring, and he has an embedded chip in his finger that's still, and he's able to actually hook back into it. And for the first time in 54 years, he hears Stevie Ray Vaughan playing Sweet Little Thing. And he's able to all of a sudden hear what he hasn't heard in all this time. And it's not just songs he could sing, it's what was lost, symphonies and things like that. Well, knowing what survives a digital crash or a technological crash of any kind is you have to go back to the last time that technology didn't exist. And we have to go all the way back to the early 1900s to get away from the phonograph. So what is there? It's folk songs from that period. How would people learn them? There would be one person that would know it, and they would sing it, and somebody might eventually join in, and maybe they don't know it from when they were a child, but they would learn it from that person. So that's how folk songs get spread, and new ones are created also. Songs that would probably still exist would be something like Macho Man, which actually becomes an anthem in, I won't tell you which one it is. Because all they knew was Macho Man, I want to be a Macho Man. That's all they knew. They knew that song, and they did it for their anthem for this particular town because they just loved it. And that was all they knew. So going back to Texas history, what would they remember? They would remember what there are place names for. They would remember what they had been told as they were riding through that last time and they saw a map. They would know something about it. Texas is filled with historical markers. We love historical markers out here, so they are still there. So those historical markers, they're metal, they're built to last centuries, and possibly if they're not stripped down for something, they would still be there. And so they would know a little bit about their local histories on those stands and on those little markers. And there would be things that they could perhaps find and read. And what's the other place where you find history? You will find history in two places. Used to be it was in the old schoolhouses that still exist out in the woods of Texas. And I have one up the street from me. It's actually the early 1900s, actually late 1800s. And it's in the woods of Jane Long School. And there are still books. I used to go out when I was much younger and I would find in old school buildings just falling down on the floor. I found some from the 1930s that were books that were.
Wow.
And I actually got them and brought them with me because I just took one. I didn't take all. I took one or two of each one and I picked them up because they were rotting on the floor of this magnificent old school building. So
I would have taken them all, man. I'd have been put them behind glass.
They belong
to libraries or museums. Like, hey, this is where I found it. There's a guy out there. Here you go.
In fact, it's part of the story where Rose finds a cache of books. And of course, they're considered to be problematic because they're from a period in Texas history where things were sometimes racist or sometimes didactic. At the same time, they are an important part of history. And she takes, because the rest are molded. It actually is a direct allegory, a direct allusion, to me finding that stash of books out in the woods, actually outside of the rest of Texas. How do we find those other things now? Because those school buildings aren't going to have school books in them anymore.
Yeah.
That history is going to be missing. What you're going to find is the stuff that's from the period where people had school books. From that point forward, there's no magazines. There's no print materials. The last time we're seeing, now they're saying they're not going to print books anymore. That we're just going to read them on. I'm printing books till I die, y'all. I'm sorry, but that's going to happen. I will find a way.
That's good because it's going to become an independent thing.
It is. If you want to buy a book, you'll have to go to an independent. Well, in this case, you have a whole area of history that's going to disappear. So what are they going to be doing? They're going to be going back to the part where the last printed books were and where they can find them. One of the Watcher's big things in the first book is he is a scavenger for the prison camp he's in, and he scavenges books. That's his escape when he's not, at the chain to the front, is that he reads his books. And it talks about the books that he finds. So that history is going to be gone. So we're not going to have this part where I'm here. They'll have references to it, maybe of the movies that they had or something like that. And then they'll have references of a 15-second YouTube clip or a meme that will become classical history at that point, But that gigantic wasteland between the last print pages, between the last time that people actually sang to each other instead of just played it on a piece of tech. People will learn how to play musical instruments again, maybe. They will learn how to sing the songs that are able to sing with those musical instruments. And that means you go back to that period. So in recreating this for Watch of the Damned, I basically went back probably to, I would say, to Texas before 1900. You have the same technology because you have the same way of moving from point A to point B. How are you going to, you can't drive. You can't take a trolley or a train. You're going to ride, excuse me, I had to sneeze. You're going to ride horses. You're going to ride horses. If you teach them, but who's going to know how to do it? Who's going to know how?
Yeah.
Filled with horses. We're absolutely chocked to the gills with horses. Let me tell you something right now. I've told you before, I live in a county where there are more cattle than there are people. There are also more horses, by golly. In my neighborhood, there's more horses than there are people. And so when we had a giant fire, the first thing we tried to do was get the horses out. We actually opened up the gates and we started moving horses and cattle and livestock as fast as we could. They're still treasured. A lot of people don't know how to ride them, but I have a hay burner out there myself. He's green broke. He's never been all the way through it because he's very hard headed and he does not care for doing all that stuff. And so he's my sweet baby, and I've had him for 20 years. And he's not a riding horse. I had a riding horse when he got killed by a cougar, and that was Cloudy. But Ranger, he's my pet pony. He's a giant guy. He's probably 17 hands high. Big old quarter horse. He's almost too big for a quarter horse. And I don't ride him. Why? Because I don't have that skill, and I know better than for me to try it if he's not broke the way he needs to be. And I just didn't want to put him through that. At the end, it was like, you know what? And we do Telling's in touch with him. We do all this stuff. He had some great people working with him. It's just not his thing. And so who's going to teach people how to ride again? So one of our main characters actually is a person. He is based on someone I actually know in real life who knows how to train horses. And he's the only one who knows how to do it. This is not a skill that's known. What happens when you do that? Only the very highest level of people are going to have access to horses. If you know how long it takes to train a horse, how long it takes to get a breeding program going where you don't have to just chase after the herds. And what are you going to do when you have animals that get out of their pens or do things? So Evangelo is that character. He's actually the one that is he's a ranger, but he's also a man of God who knows how to break horses, who knows, and breaking them, not in the bad way, breaking them as in becoming that person who establishes a relationship with the horse. And he teaches people how to ride and how to have this relationship. And a lot of our story is centered around that because it's not an easy skill to come. You don't just decide one day you're going to ride a horse. If you do that, you may become one of the many people who's decided one day that they were going to go home to meet Jesus, because it's not as easy as it looks, y'all. And you need special equipment and you need to do things a certain way. So I'm very blessed that I've lived in Texas where these things actually exist. And I can take us back to that point in time where somebody had to do that work, where somebody had to know how to load a shotgun and how to do these things. I was just having a discussion online just a few minutes ago when the man was like, but you look like you have a 45 and then you also have a ray gun. Well, it's because they're scavenging these weapons. So both of these things exist side by side. What's missing is actually an entire generation of weapons that was created that must be unlocked through digital touch. And we're already seeing these. We're seeing the things that they can only work if the person who owns it has their fingerprints loaded into the weapon, and you have to touch it a certain way or put in your like a DNA tag. And there is a whole group of weapons that belongs to in Watch of the Dam where they find them and they just pass them by. They're not using them. And the vast majority of people in Texas didn't have them. They had their grandfathered in weapons from the 1920s through the 2025, 2050 era. And then you have what's beyond that is this group of weapons that are created around a digital medium. So what do we have? We have this giant gap in it, and you have these old fashioned firearms. And then you have a ray gun that actually has the same thing, but they've been found in this EMP proof box, and they're able to be accessed, but they have a particular type of accessory that you have to wear in order for you to use it. It really limits the way that they can use it. It's not just something you pick up and casually use. So knowing not only your history for Texas, but knowing what the future trajectory might be, as we have people say that weapons shouldn't be that readily accessible or they don't need to make them anymore. What happens when the firearms manufacturers, that the world decides they don't want Americans to have guns? Well, you'd have people hoard guns that they can hoard, and others that are privileged would have these other types of weapons. being able to move through the timeline backwards and forwards, to be able to flow with that distant past of 1880 and the near future of Watcher the Damned and the eventual fall of civilization is a lesson in how to know what might be precious to us all. What do we need to know? What are the skills we need to have? What do I know myself personally that would allow me just to even get from my house to my church that's 2 miles away from my house? Truth is, I'd have to walk. I'd have to get there that way, and the songs I know will be the ones I learn to sing. And everything else, it's going to be up to me to learn how to do it all over again or to teach somebody else to do it. Because when it comes down to it, only that what is precious will remain. The rest will be lost. And we need to prepare our minds and our hearts for that. There's fixing to be at least 2 to 3 generations that will be lost into digital dust. What are you going to have on your shelf that you want people to find? What will you have in your house that you want people to know this was real? Because every picture I've got of my family, except with very few exceptions, is going to be gone when my phone goes dark. Everything that I have that is my music and my games and everything else will go missing. The lights will go out, and all that will be left is what I've made a point to save. Know what it is. Have your books. Have some pictures. Make a print of the people you love, because that may be all that's left. And that's the history that other people are going to find.
Very true, very true. Inspiring, even. You actually inspired a bit of a story there that I wrote down.
Ooh.
I'm going to have to write later on. If I get the chance, I am jam-packed with stories that need to be written. I know Black Knight probably knows that struggle.
Yeah.
Very much so. Yeah, there's definitely a lot of history there. And that's one aspect of culture. A lot of people, or I should say a lot of people, like, in general, we may not take into account is just how particular cultures can be, even though they may be inside of an existing place like the United States. So it's so large that there are, in fact, multiple cultures within it. That in itself seems to be something from science fiction in the midst of, say, the ancient empires of old that were said to be so large. The mythical ancient empires of old said to be so large that they would contain multiple civilizations within them. That's sort of what the U.S. is right now, which is an interesting aspect of culture to pull from. For myself, I say I didn't really pull much from cultures. Well, I say a culture as much as I did a time period, which was roughly the 14th century. I pulled a lot of stuff from the 14th century, particularly the adventurous side of things, of people breaking away from their cultures and exploring the world around them and what they find, and the sort of diversity of the planet as it was. And if anybody reads World Without End, they know that it's a mix of genres and stories. And I also add in a mix of cultures that are significantly different yet important across the board, because I'm writing all in a very contained world. And these cultures, though many of them have a lot of boundaries in between them, they know of each other, they speak of each other, they even have legends of each other, even if the individuals just may not have ever seen it. And they're so separated and different from one another, yet bound, that I found it more important to pull from an entire time period of one with diverse cultures, from technologically advanced in the sense of gunpowder and massive ships and plate armor, to very tribalistic in nature and very rudimentary with say like stone tools and the like, all of them existing at once and together and interacting with one another. That I found that the 14th century had a lot to pull from in that regard, and many of it is just buried in notes that I've taken from years past that I'd have to dig up to re-explore, because that's what happens when you're exploring a vast time period and less of a singular location, that you just get notes upon notes that you refer to or that you explore more of. And you're talking about the digital age we're in. One of the boons of that is it's very easy to look up things these days. And I have and then sort of mimicking what you said, it's very easy to look up things, but people have taken it for granted, and it's become a thing that they just leave there online, or something that they leave behind to look up later, to just Google it later. But it's become a practice of mine to take these notes and put them on physical paper so I can look at them, not only because you don't have to worry about them getting deleted, but also because it's good to physically hold and look at something that's not a screen. Like even today, a majority, if not all writers, at least in the West, stare at screens all day trying to type their stories out, and I believe it's important to step away from that and just allow your physical body, your eyes to breathe some. That's also why I've been also getting into literature as well, but not only literature. It's kind of interesting. You brought up Ray Bradbury a bit earlier, and all these different authors of the past, but many of them have actually been producing, which I didn't know until recently, graphic novel versions of their literature. And
Yeah.
I've been exploring those a lot as well, not only to add to my collection of books. As you may know, I have a large series of them, but also because um I find it is an interesting way to take advantage of the medium of say a comic book, as well as not explore but introduce others to the medium by finding serious literature. Like Ray Bradbury produced Fahrenheit 451, the authorized adaptation, which I actually purchased not too long ago. And I think another aspect thereof that just came to me now is that I'm going to say that comic books, to an extent, are poor people's literature, in the sense that if I go online, I can find some pretty good titles for
Yeah.
particularly cheap, like very cheap. Fahrenheit 451 cost me less than $7, and it's over 200 pages of both art and approved literature by Ray Bradbury himself, because it's a adaptation of his work. But not only that, but it's got an excellent 2-page introduction breaking down the creation, or I should say, like the or how the story came to be, so to say. I know you want to reply. Go ahead, Snow. Go ahead.
No, just first of all, I'm such a Ray Bradbury stan. It's so terrible. I need to go back and read everything he wrote, and I'm saying everything because it was such a huge part of my childhood. I loved him so much, and Isaac Asimov as well. And I said the first finest book I ever read on writing actually is by Ray Bradbury's Zen: The Art of Writing, and sort of like Zen in the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance, but it's Zen in the Art of Writing. And I think I've got it right, but I loved the book. It's more of a series of essays on how he writes and his process and what he would do. Not so much a you do it this way and this is how you write this chapter. It just is setting free that muse. And one of the things, he was not afraid to try out different mediums. And personally, I myself, I love reading. I know that we've heard several people talk recently. John Carmack was one that linked to it, and it was of interest to me because he actually has my book in his library. Has not my book, but the entire series in his library. And I of mine is which is actually a huge deal for me. And John Carmack, if you don't know him, is actually the another space pioneer. Has Armadillo Air, and also has worked with Elon Musk, and is the creator of Doom. And so he had my books, and he was talking about how he felt like that, since they're saying now that they won't print paperbacks anymore, that they're not going to offer them. that you're seeing this age come to an end. I'm like, as long as I can live, it only comes to an end if we let them do this. We have the right and the duty to save every book you possibly can. Do not let people destroy them just because they don't have space for them or something else. Like you said, donate them to someone, get them somewhere, do something that you can do to save these items, because that world without your history and without the written word is a world that can be changed in a moment's notice by someone who has a touch of a button somewhere. They've already done it with Orwell's 1984, where they actually changed it on the fly and people did not know. It showed up in Kindle and suddenly it was different. And they had to answer, why did they do that? Same thing with James and the Giant Peach. Roald Dahl's, they went in and changed it.
They also changed, and I think it's remained as such. They removed a scene from the movie "It's a Wonderful Life" towards the end sequences involving.
No way. Which
yeah,
what,
Amazon, the Amazon version, I guess.
What did they remove?
I believe it's one of the Christian sequences. Like, it was about 3 years ago. Everyone was up in arms about it, but I don't think they changed it.
They can get right. That's the reason why you want stuff on DVD or Blu-ray. I have this huge collection, like 300, and It's a Wonderful Life is one of them. There's a reason why, because they will change anything they can. Do not let them do this to your culture. Save your books. Yes, they will refuse to print. We will find a way to print. If Gutenberg can do it, so can we. And we can find a way to do it. If we have to print it out on PDFs and set them in a stacked box for people to pick them up, that's what we'll do. But, they're making it to where you can't even print things out anymore. You have to have a subscription, and it goes through on your internet, and everything shows up there. So get your books in print while you can. Make certain that you have them available to you and your family and your loved ones and your heirs, because it only takes a moment for Amazon to decide that your book isn't going to exist anymore. But a book that is in print is for, and you have to get them done.
Yeah, books last a long time. They last a long time.
If you get the trade books, and I one of the things I want to do very much is to create a hardback version of Watcher the Damned with the sets where there actually is broken down into 4 series: Watcher the Damned Watcher, Watcher the Damned Warrior, Watcher the Damned Wanderer, and Watcher the Damned Warlord. And it's each 3 books, because it will be a 12-book series in the end.
Nice.
Basically, and to do that and to put it on rag paper so that way it stays acid free, so it stays together and it has a hardback where it will be able to be stored properly. Because there is a time when these will be the tomes, those magic tomes, when you walk down in D&D and you're going down the hallway and you're looking for the wizard's tower and you see a door leading to the basement and you turn into it and it's dank and it's dark and you're wondering if anything's there, and you open a door and it turns out that there is the light and a room full of books, and that is the treasure. That's where the magic is. That's where those spells exist. Books are the key to civilization. There was a reason that the Library of Alexandria was such a horrific moment, because it was burned to the ground and it took with it everything that was good about the Roman Empire. We need to end actually to almost 1,000 years of up in smoke. It can happen again. Make certain that you have what you know is true and real in your world. Have a copy of the Bible. Have a copy of history. Have a copy of your own U.S. history if you are in the U.S., or your own history overseas if you are living overseas. Make sure it's written by somebody from your own culture and your own nation, so that way you hear the words spoken in the language that you want to hear. Make sure that you have a book that has the definition of words in it, that you have a book that has another language, so you can learn the language that's adjacent to your country, so you know how to talk. Because these things will become tools that can keep people isolated forever, or will actually set them free. We need these things. We need to see ourselves as the wizards of tomorrow. We have the books, we have the magic, we have the power. There will be generations that pray to God that they find what we had access to. And if we were wise, we will have access to the books and the music and the culture and the heritage that they thought was lost. And there will be those who celebrate that we no longer have access. we are going to prove them wrong, and we are going to preserve heritage of everyone. There is a reason that the griot culture of Africa is celebrated, because it is the oral storytelling tradition that is passed on from mother to daughter to mother to daughter, from father to son. We need to make sure that we can do that. And we're going to do it in print version, if not in words. But we have to be the keepers of the flame. And we must do this, or we will lose not just our culture, but the entire world.
Well said. Yes, yes, it's important, especially in this day and age where information is so broadly shared. There's no reason for it to disappear. But it will. It definitely will. We are nearing the end of our stream here. Another actually magnificent conversation. I want to give a shout out to our chat. We had King Bob joining us, Moral Officer Gran here, who's enjoying my current Evergreen series. Thank you for reading. We definitely had Frederick Guimont stopping by. It's always good to see Fred out there in the chat. But as we wrap it up, why don't we go ahead and share some final thoughts and where we can find you? We'll start off with you, Black Knight. Some final thoughts and where we can find you, man.
Well, as far as to where you can find me, it's the Amazons.
Yes, sir.
Where you can find all my so far published Star Shattered books of the Star Shattered series, and my more recent fantasy book, Lord of Bones, plus my story collections and the 2 books about Valiant the Authorian. And my final thoughts would be that unless you want something to endure, unless you want the things that you need to endure, unless you safeguard them and share them with others, they will not endure. So I had multiple books, the same series, older books, older editions that I when I had the means, I purchased them and I shared them. I gave them to others to have who at the time they couldn't. Yeah. So that's a thing. That's one of the more important things that you could do. So yeah.
Well said. Yeah, share literature. It's very possible, and especially today in day and age, we should be sharing and creating more instead of seeing it disappear, or the threat thereof. But R.H Snow, what are some final words you'd like to share with the peoples, and where can they find you?
First of all, thank you for bringing this up. I know we just sort of went with near his. I have so many areas of history I love. You already know I'm obsessed with the Upanishads and ancient India, the Gupta Empire, and the Kama Sutra actually is being a historical document talking about the citizen of that time. And I love the pre-Roman Empire. I also love the post-Roman Empire of Great Britain, one of my most fascinating periods. And of course, the Celtic mythos and legend, which is part of my family heritage. And these things that we have in our lives, the incredible tapestry of who we are, we don't want to lose that. We want to be able to sing the songs that our ancestors sang and still pay homage to the ones who are coming behind us. There are songs that are yet to be sung. There are things that are yet to be heard. We need to teach them how to transcribe their thoughts. We need to teach them how to write on a piece of paper, how to pick out and tune on a guitar, how to play a few notes on a piano, and how to read books. We need to give that gift. We are history. It's who we are. You are history. Your story, your life is somebody else's adventure. They're going to wish they were you. Bob, Moralgren, with you guys, they're going to want to be you. Somebody is going to find a piece of you afterwards and go, they lived during this incredible period where all these chaotic things were happening and the world was changing so quickly and nobody knew what was going to happen next. And I wonder what they thought about it. You now have the ability to do that. Sit down tonight and write something on paper. Put it in writing and make it ink so the world will know who you were and the history that you are. You have something to share. Your life is beautiful. It is not just an ordinary life. It's a life that is incredibly imbued with strength and power and courage and broken dreams and heartaches and fears of what might happen and regrets for what already did and the wonderful courage that it takes to face the next day, get up out of bed and say, I'm never going to give up. I'm never going to surrender. I'm here for a reason. And they will know who I am. That's what you're going to do. And you can find me at watcherthe.com, where I've left behind my own story embedded in the pages of Watcher of the Damned. And you can find me also, of course, on Amazon under R.H Snow, Watcher of the Damned, the series. And we will be having, I'm getting out my 9th book now. Caballeros del Camino is out there, and it is another Prometheus Award nominee. So I'm very happy about that. I'm very excited because I'm always afraid they're going to get real tired of me or something. As far as I know, we're out there. So we'll see. But it's on the list. We'll see if it passes the next part of it. But thrilled to death to be a part of you guys' lives. Thank you for allowing me into your hearts and allowing me into your lives. And I love you. Love you, Moralgren. I love you. And I'm going to be on Substack. I am. I was so caught up in my.
You're busy.
I got caught up in it. And I love you, King Bob. You're awesome. So thank you guys for being here for us. And I love you too, Black Knight and James.
I mean, that's the thing, the humbleness of an indie author who respects the art. That's another thing you get from indies compared to those who just want to industrialize the art and use it as a form of fame and wealth.
It's a product. It's just
they turned it into a product, which you may get some products in indie, but a majority of them are going to come from the heart there. And then that's where you're going to find the art. But everybody, thank you all for joining us. Hopefully you've been inspired to go out and create. Everybody always needs something good to read. But with that said, we are out of here. Have a good rest of your day, people.